Hello, everybody. My name is Giuseppe Castagna. I'm the CEO of BPM, which is Banca Popolare di Milano. Just to make things a bit more confusing, we are under a merger with another bank, which is called Banco Popolare. So the names are very similar. I will try to make a reference to each of them in order to make you understand what is going on. Thank you for calling me. Of course, I've been privileged because we have been the only bank to make a merger under this reform of the cooperative bank that Mr. Renzi issued in January 2015. The final date in which we should have done this all the cooperative banks should become a joint stock company. We had 2 times in order to do that. Some of the banks already became the joint stock company, some will be, and we have taken advantage of this situation in order to try to grow in size. Everybody talked this morning about small companies, about how nice it was considered to be small. For banking, it's not so nice, frankly speaking. And it's about clear, especially from Mr. Binismaghi's speech, that the regulatory environment, the difficulties of negative interest rates, the investment that we are obliged to do in order to have a digital activity are such that it's quite impossible to hope to run a bank of small size. Why so we were the only one to do a merger? Because cooperative banks is something very comfortable for the stakeholder. Stakeholder being the people who works in the bank. Stakeholder means the governance. Many times this morning we say that one of the problems of the Italian bank is governance. This is true also for Banche Popolari, not only, but also for Banche Popolari. Stakeholders are also the clients of Banca Popolari, because sometimes you get advantage because it's something that is very fond of local constituency, local entrepreneurs, family which live in the same territory. And so sometimes there is some misjudgment also in giving money to this client, and so everybody takes advantage of that. But was very important to have this reform because consolidation is something that we cannot anymore delay, even though the bank worked well. And that's why I want just to show you what we have done in the 3 previous years. I joined the bank in January 2014. The bank was established more than, last year we made 150 years of age, so it's very long established bank in Italy, in the richest part of Italy, because as you know, Milan and the Lombardy region is one of, not only is the most rich region in Italy, but one of the richest in all Europe. We were also listed to the joint stock, to the stock market since 1994. You know that many cooperative banks are not even listed. This caused also some problems. You for sure knows the story of Veneto Banca and Vicenza, which made themselves the price every year in order to make happy their shareholders. Unfortunately, then the stock were worth 0. Just to make you understand what the cooperative looks after, in order to make understand the difference between a joint stock company and a cooperative, this is the cake of the economic value distributed by our bank in 2015. You can see that we keep almost in the same of the same importance what we give back to our colleagues in terms of salary, what we give to our suppliers, because normally they are local and very close suppliers, what we give to the public administration in paying tax, and what we give to shareholders. Shareholders, you see, is the smaller slice. It's just 10%. But if you would have looked to this cake 3 years ago, was 0. And of course, also public administration was 0, because if you lose money, you cannot pay tax. So it ends up with the cooperative banks to make the interest of your colleagues, of the people who works in the bank. And this was exactly the case in Banca Popolare Milano, which was a bank led by unions, because of course unions represented the people who worked in the bank. That was so the path that we have tried to do when we joined the bank in 2014. The situation was very, very difficult because we were the only Italian bank sanctioned by Bank of Italy in terms of capital, where we had something that was called add-on. So that means that we could not utilize something like 700 million of euro in terms of capital owned by the bank because of some prudential review made by Bank of Italy. We were the only one. I underline this. Then, you know, after how many banks failed, but Popolare Milano in Lombardy was a bank considered very, very dangerous. We had in October 2013 the resignation of the former CEO. We had in January 14 the sale of all the stock by the previous major owner of the bank, which was a private equity fund, an Italian private equity fund, Invest Industrial. And we went the resignation of all the boards. We had the dual system, so board of director and management board and supervisory board. We had also to perform a share issue since 15 months, which we were not able to perform because of the internal condition of the bank. In any case, we were very lucky. I would say that in the first 6 months, we were able to perform the capital issue. We were able to get back the capital that the Bank of Italy penalized us before. And so we were ready in October 14 to face the AQR, the first exercise made by the new regulator, ECB, in a very good manner. We were amongst 15 banks monitored by ECB. We were the 4th best Italian bank in terms of excess of capital. So we passed successfully the SREP. Also in terms of economic performance, we were able to switch from deep red to a quite good green. In the first years, we realized 230 million of profit. And at that moment, beginning to 2015, came the reform of Banca Popolare. So we could have had two choices. One, to live quite peacefully in continuing to be a cooperative bank for at least 2 years and then switch to joint stock company, strong of the results we were doing and the good environment that we were having, both in terms of reputation, in terms of market price, because we were for 2 consecutive years the best stock market in the banking system in Italy. But we thought that was not enough. We thought that consolidation would have been compulsory, and that without the reform of Banca Popolare, we maybe would never have had the opportunity to merge with another bank. Why I say that? Because again, everybody is happy to stay local, to play for few local constituency that are happy that you run the bank in a proper way, but without losing the power of and a sort of an affiliative governance that unfortunately in Italy is quite present. We talked this morning about that. This does not apply only, of course, to Banca Popolare. This applies also to a big joint stock company owned by foundation, for instance. We have had many cases, Montepaschi is one of them, in which the crazy behavior of some stakeholders brought the bank to a desperate situation. Unfortunately, things didn't go for the Italian banking system as everybody was expecting, especially after Brexit. public opinion, investors, the media. This is one famous cover from Economist that as soon after Brexit, they said that the Italian banking system was on the verge of bankruptcy, basically. Why that? Because of the many of the very bad environment in terms of economics. Alberto this morning already made all the presentation about the lack of GDP, of inflation, the negative Euribor, which is for the first time in Europe minus 0.30 this year, 18 consecutive months in which we have negative interest rate. Nobody was used and prepared to face this kind of situation. And so the difficulties to make money, to make profit for the banking system. Also, this figure was shown this morning, interest rate at an all-time low, a big, dramatic, impressive increase in loan loss provision. You see on the right side how they increased in the last 7-8 years and how the profitability went down. For 2-3 years, we had more loan loss provision than profitability. In 5 years, cumulative losses for the Italian banking system were over 50 billion of euro. How react the Italian banking system? Unfortunately, as was mentioned also this morning, we could not take advantage from a support, a European support, or even a government support, because we were late. I don't know if this can be utilized also in the future, that because we were late, we cannot have any help. But somebody this morning mentioned that 600 billion of government aid have been made in Europe during 2011 and 12. Nowadays, we have had instead 60 billion of share issue, all paid by the shareholders of the banks. And this, of course, was eaten very badly many banks. And so we had the many cases I don't want to mention. Unfortunately, we tried also to have some solution. As you know, there's been the 4 banks that Roberto Nicastro was mentioning this morning, and he has the responsibility to sell them. But unfortunately, it's a very difficult task. Nowadays, it looks like we are not getting back. Everything was financed by the banking system, both the 4 banks and the 2 banks, Veneto and Vicenza, under the Atlante scheme. Everything was paid by the banking system, but it looks like it's very difficult not only to get back the money we put into this bank, but maybe we could be also called to give other money in order to make these 6 banks survive and be sold in the future. On top of that, there was the regulator. The regulator was not only not happy enough that Italy had survived alone without any help, but there's been a dramatic strengthening in the capital requirement. Of course, this is gone for all Europe, not only in Italy, but in Italy, having done everything by ourselves, was much difficult to call shareholders, to make calls, to face also this dramatic increase in capital requirement. As you see, we almost doubled from 7 to 12.3% the common equity tier 1 ratio in 7 years. ECB also asked for robust reduction of non-performing loans. We have seen how much they grown in this recession. They went up to 200 billion gross and 85 billion net. And all the banks have to provide a new plan in order not only to work out these non-performing loans, but also to sell. But you can understand how it's possible to sell 200 million with the pushing of ECB. Of course, this make a very small market became not even there, because of course buyers are waiting for the price to go down and down. So we thought that a possible solution to this dramatic situation could have been to try to make money out of cost efficiency. And in order to have cost efficiency, of course, you need to consolidate. That's why through cost synergies, through the reduction of physical presence, and so the reduction of the branch network, through what is possible to do in Italy, what the reduction of employees, this was another thing mentioned this morning. In Italy, you cannot close a branch and fire people, luckily enough for the people who work in the bank, but it's a dramatic situation because the bank fails if they don't do that. But in any case, there is some opportunity, and we thought that it was good for us to try to grow inside and try to exploit the maximum level the synergies we could have done. That's why we try to have this merger. We have looked since the beginning, because we were one of the few banks performing so well, we thought that in order to have a merger of equal, the best thing would have gone with a much bigger bank than ourselves. And in fact, Banco Popolare and BPM represent respectively 70% Banco and 30% Banca Popolare Milano of the total asset of the company. Notwithstanding that, we had a merger of equal 50-50%. This is the long way we had to go through in order to perform this merger. This is another thing which is very, very difficult to do, because when you announce for two listed company, when you announce that you are only in talks to merger, the share price are going up and down. Imagine to keep this stock listed for 7 months, which was the time that we needed in order to get the final authorization from ECB. It's a very lengthy and expensive process, which costs also 1 billion of share issue that Banco Popolare did during these 6 months. In any way, we arrived at the 9th of September with the final authorization, and we thought it was already the end of the story. But there was a very other difficult thing. For Banca Popolare, you need to have an EGM, which is done with one head, one vote, that have to vote in favor of the merger. I have to vote in favor of the merger for 2/3 of the EGM. That means that we had to make a sort of internal referendum for having the approval. We had a strong opposition to the merger, always for the same reason I was mentioning before. Conservatism is everywhere. You have to say people that from 55 person in the board in the two banks, we had a dual system, they had only one. We had to reduce to 23 person. You had to say to your guys, your people, your colleagues, that half of them basically risk their place, not in terms of losing the job, but in terms of the role that they have, because when you merge banks, of course, there is a lot of overlapping. Notwithstanding that, the project was approved only by 500 votes, so this is another thing that is going a bit through silence, but has been very, very difficult to get these results, and the result was done only for a few votes of difference. What will be this new bank? This new bank, the strength of the new bank will be that this is 80% of the asset of the bank will be positioned in the 4 regions of the north of Italy, Piedmont, Lombardy, Veneto, and Emilia-Romagna. These 4 regions are also amongst the 10 richest and most manufacturing regions in Europe. So having more than 3/4 of the banking asset and clients and branch in this region give us a lot of boost in terms of potential growth and potential recovery. We will end up being the 3rd bank in Italy, but the 1st bank, for instance, in Lombardy, even bigger than Intesa Sanpaolo in terms of branches. We will be in the 4 regions of northern Italy, the 3rd bank, but very, very close to UniCredit and Intesa Sanpaolo. You see, the market share will be 10.5% for us and 12% for UniCredit and Intesa. The plan, of course, has some guidelines. I don't want to take more of your time, but of course is concentrated on reduction of the branch network, on only we will be 25,000 people, and we will have only voluntary retirement scheme for 1,800 people. So it would be not a dramatic situation, because everybody who retire is going to have an early retirement plan, which leave them with an opportunity to go out of the job, but with an early early retirement scheme. We will be able to serve with customized products all our class of clients. We will build a new corporate investment banking with one of our product factory, which is called Acros, which is already in the investment banking business. We will have a new private bank dedicated to the wealthiest client, which will be under the name of Aletti, which is another bank which is under our group. The capital, of course, will be crucial. We have had 1 billion in capital increase in May. All the amount gross of this capital increase will be spent in increasing the provisioning to face the non-performing loans, in order to perform in the 3-year times of the business plan a disposal of more than 8 billion of non-performing loans. Talking of synergies, this will be the figure at the of the plan. We will increase net income from 580 million to 1.1 billion. We will reduce our cost-income ratio by 4 points. We will reduce our cost of risk by 40 basis points. We will increase the return on equity from 5 to 9%, with a sound capital of around 13%. Why we say that we can be able to perform this plan and these results? Because basically the plan is made all of saving of costs. Exactly 320 million will come from synergy cost, 140 million from the reduction in personnel, 40 million from reduction of the branch network, 100 million from general administrative cost. Out of more than 1 billion of global cost, we will reduce 10%. And then we will have another two very important bulk of cost reduction, which will be funding cost, which especially in the other bank are very high, because they have a heavy recourse to the bond market, both in terms of wholesale and retail. And we can switch, due to the good rating that the bank will have, and due to the measure that ECB has in place in order to finance the bank with the famous TLTRO program, the possibility to switch on ECB product on direct sight deposit, which of course are very, very low cost. And finally, we will have something like 370 million, which is the reduction in cost of risk, in cost of credit, which is the equivalent of the reduction to 63 basis points of the cost of risk. So basically, meanwhile, we of course have also a very strong plan which want to increase the revenues. We can just with the synergy cost get to our final result. That means that that make understand the importance of consolidation. Of course, not everything is easy. This will be very, very, very difficult to realize, because there are execution risks, but we can count in a so different moment on 1 billion of potential savings. And this, I think, is the answer that we can give to everybody who thinks that consolidation is not a good affair. Thank you very much.
a brief statement and a question. The brief statement is that, in my view, and if you disagree, feel free to disagree, but in my view, BPM represents a good example of what early intervention does. In a sense, BPM had a lot of troubles with the Bank of Italy in 2010, 2011, and so early warning system now sort of is in a much better shape. So I think that one can do by difference what has been missing in a lot of other cases. But now the question is, you gave us a very optimistic view of the merger, and I hope that all of this is true. But we know that mergers have two characteristics. One is they can bring interesting synergies and cost savings. The other times is at least one of the two sides, when they try to sell to hide problems. Now, given that BPM is coming from a long story, etc., I grant that BPM is not the source of the problem. The big question is, takes two to tango, the other side. So do you have some guarantee, don't exist in business, but do you have some reassurance or some indications or things that Banca Popolare does not have the problem that Banca Popolare di Vicenza, Veneto Bank, and I can go on and have, because all these cost savings from a return to investment can be swamped by a lot of bad non-performing loan, or even worse, apparent performing loans that are in fact evergreening and stuff like that.
No, unfortunately, I don't have any guarantee about that. We have only 8 months of deep work with this bank. We have to rely on many inspections that the supervisor did both in our bank and in Banco Popolare. We have to rely on the due diligence. We have had a few weeks ago further inspection, not only in terms of credit, which of course is something that can always happen also in the future, but just to make an answer to what we were mentioning about Vicenza and Veneto, we also had all the Banche Popolari. We had an on-site inspection in order to see if also in our bank there was the habits to grant loans in exchange of underwriting shares. And also this was excluded by both banks. So on top of that, I would say that on Banco Popolare, you can say whatever you think about the region, the habits of cooperative banks, but they have a CEO, which is Francesco Saviotti, which has always been a fanatic of credit quality. You say how a fanatic of credit quality can have such bad loans, because unfortunately the story of Banco Popolare is made of two very, very bad transactions. One was the Italy's transaction, which ended up with people in jail, and the other one was Popolare Lodi, which ended up with other people in jail. So maybe they don't do very nice business, very nice affair in merging banks, but because this time is us that they're merging, we are quite sure that for them is also a good affair. For us, why is good? I have to say that because of the trend and the turnover we have done, and we are really a small bank, we have reached almost 300 million of net profit, having rationalized everything we could, having reduced 150 branch out of 600, having reduced 1,000 people out of 7,000, having performed for 3 years consecutive very well with a better environment than what we expect right now. So it's very, if you have seen the figure, and if you want to believe to the figure for a minute, that means that if we can get 1 billion net profit in 2019, the share for my shareholders would be 500 million. And I would never be able to get in 3 years' time net profit from Banco Popolare Milano from 290 to 300 million, to 500 million. So this is another reason why we thought it was a good business also for our shareholders.
Let me push back a little bit on one of the answer that you gave from the perspective of an economist that thinks about incentives. What's the incentive of the regulator to do a true analysis of the non-performing loans. It's actually quite the opposite, because if what they want is a merger. If there are a lot of non-performing loans, what they want is a merger because they don't want to create another Etruria and they want to hide it in your bank. So I wouldn't rely on them to find the non-performing loans. So they're going to probably hide them, and they've done it in the past, or they were not able to. It's either incompetence or either one of the others. But it's not going to seem to be helpful to me.
May I answer with a question? Do you know Madame Neuilly? Just a joke. No, in the previous it was done, but I would say not by the same regulator. This is a new one. It's very harsh. We didn't expect that they asked us of 1 billion share issue. So that's the proof that they were not at all lazy or permissive in order to say, let's go with the merger, take the occasion to do that. They asked for a heavy share issue that we didn't expect. And they stayed 6 months in each bank in order to check everything. Of course, I don't rely on that. I rely on what we decided. But if I go back to the previous merger in the banking system, and if you have read some book recently, you see that they made merger in 1 week. We did a merger that lasted 7 months, in which everybody looked very, very focused into the other books. So I don't think that, unfortunately, I don't think that the attitude from ECB is the same of the previous regulator. They are very, very difficult people, also because I consider them a startup, because it's only 2 years of age, people coming from 28 countries with different background, different culture, different banking system knowledge. So I feel that, unfortunately, they are more difficult than easy guys. But anyway, we will see. Of course, again, I think anybody, I read also some comments from many people from the industry, which say there is no safe merger right now. Safe is not the business of the banking industry. We have to perform in a manner in which the risk return is the better possible, and we feel that this is the better risk return merger possible.
Perfect. Thanks so much.